So now the actual trusteeship agreement is for the administration of the Cameroons. My country people them. Today I will bring for una the United Nations trusteeship agreement. As we understand, the former British Southern Cameroons, when at the territory where we come out from, it be been under the trusteeship agreement where the United Nations it be get with the United Kingdom for the administration of that territory. So if una fit see am for this document, una Google am, una go get this same document. Una just Google the trusteeship agreements, it will come up, una download them, examine them for yourselves. There were 11 trust territories in total. And number 2 for here, it been the trusteeship agreements for the Cameroons under British administration. The Cameroons, where it include the Northern Cameroon and the Southern Cameroons. So we'll go examine the trusteeship agreement. So before I continue, for go talk about the trusteeship agreement for the Cameroons under British administration, I want to make una look at number 1 for here and number 5. Number 1 are the trusteeship agreement for Togoland under British administration and the trusteeship agreement for Togoland under French administration. I go come back, I can talk about Togoland, the French Togoland and the British Togoland for una, for give una similarities which way it don't happen with other territories them when are the same thing it happen for the former British Cameroons. So now the actual trusteeship agreement is for the administration of the Cameroons. It talks that this agreement will be approved by the General Assembly for December 1946. So we go read the agreement. It starts by talking, say, whereas the territory known as Cameroons under British mandate, hereinafter will be referred to as the territory, has been administered in accordance with Article 22 of the Covenant of the League of Nations under a mandate conferred on His Britannic Majesty, and that whereas Article 75 of the UN Charter, signed at San Francisco on the 26th of June 1945, provides for the establishment of an international trusteeship system for the administration and supervision of such territories, and also His Majesty has indicated his desire to place the territory under the said international trusteeship system. In accordance with Article 75 and 77 of the UN Charter, the placing of a territory under the international trusteeship system is to be effected by means of a trusteeship agreement. Now, therefore, the General Assembly of the United Nations thereby resolves to approve the following terms of the trusteeship for the territory. So Article 1 for the agreement, it talks the territory which this agreement applies to, blah, 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 talk about the Cameroons lying west of the boundary defined by the Franco-British Declaration of 10th of July 1919, and more exactly, blah, 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 the declaration made by the governor of the colony and protectorate of Nigeria and the governor of the Cameroons under French mandate, blah, 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 blah. They talk about how it was confirmed by the exchange of notes between His Majesty's government in the United Kingdom and the French government of 9 January 1931. So basically, they define the territory which this mandate or this agreement it will apply. And they tell una say the exchange of notes, exchange of notes between the British government and the French government, that is an international agreement. This is how countries, sovereign states, enter into negotiations and arrive at an agreement. It is called exchange of note in international diplomatic and political and legal issues. That is how countries enter into agreements and also terminate agreements by exchange of notes. So now Article 1 of that agreement, it continue for this next page where it talk about how they fit slightly modify the mutual agreement between His Majesty's government in the United Kingdom and the government of the French Republic, where an examination of the locality shows that it is desirable in the interest of the inhabitants. So this one now also the British and the French people for Europe, they should them for they decide for modify the boundaries of these territories as they wish. So Article 2 of the trusteeship agreement, it designates His Majesty as the administering authority for the territory and also give them their responsibility. Say His Majesty's government in the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, it get the responsibility for the administration of that territory. So Article 3 of the Trusteeship Agreement talks say, the administering authority undertakes to administer the territory in such a manner as to achieve the basic objective of the international trusteeship system laid down in Article 76 of the UN Charter. The administering authority further undertakes to collaborate fully with the General Assembly of the UN and the Trusteeship Council in the discharge of all their functions as defined in Article 87 of the UN Charter, and to facilitate any periodic visits to the territory which they deem necessary at times to be agreed upon with the administering authority. Article 4 of the agreement talks say, the administering authority shall be responsible for A. The peace, order, good government and defense of the territory. B. Ensuring that it shall play its part in the maintenance of international peace and security. So the article, it continues for talk say, for the above mentioned purposes and for the purpose of this agreement, as may be necessary, the administering authority it get full powers of legislation, administration, and jurisdiction in the territory and shall administer it in accordance with his own laws as an integral part of his territory. So what did that one mean? It means say the United Kingdom as the administering authority now them get full powers of legislation, administration, and jurisdiction of the territory. This is called sovereignty. That is the sovereign power where the British, they be get them over that territory. This sovereign power be given to them by the United Nations, the UN trusteeship system, the trusteeship agreement. Is spell them out, black and white. When I say I'm no, now in this, under Article 4, it talk for day. Say, the administering authority it be responsible for peace, good order, good governance, and the defense of the territory, military. Now, why that way the British Cameroons, it no be fit get ye own army, because the British, they be own sovereignty over the territory and they be responsible for the territory ye defense. It go on for spell them out clearly. Say the British, they be get full powers for legislation, administration, jurisdiction of the territory in accordance, and they fit administer the territory in accordance with their own laws as an integral part of their country. Wait, means wait, the British Cameroons, it be being an integral part of the United Kingdom, a territory that is owned by the United Kingdom. And why that way? When I hear a person like Barrister Ashu Emmanuel, he can't flaunt or they can show some pieces of paper, say, being at the constitution of the Southern Cameroons, that constitution had to be adopted by the British Parliament. The people them inside the former British Southern Cameroons could not make any laws on their own. They needed the acceptance from London because the supreme power, the full power of legislation, administration, jurisdiction, it be come out now from the administering authority. Now the United Nations be give them that power. That is called sovereignty. The sovereignty of that territory it be held by the British. Now this agreement it talk am. No be me they talk am. So we continue. If we scroll down to the next page, they continue for talk about how the British as the administering authority, they will modify as may be required to local conditions and subject to the provisions of the UN Charter and this agreement. So they will modify how they administer the territory as their laws for the UK it dictate, and also as local conditions and subject to the provisions of the UN Charter. So they will modify the way they administer the territory, and because of this way it be grant the British them the latitude for divide that into two parts, the northern Cameroons and the southern Cameroons, for the purpose of administration. But the agreement, it be been for one territory, the Cameroons under British administration. Now one agreement, now one territory. But the British, they will get the latitude for divide them into two just for administrative purposes only, as the local conditions, they will fit modify them as may be required by the local conditions them. So if the local conditions, they allow them, they fit do certain modifications them for that territory for the administrative purposes only. And then the agreement, it continue for talk say, the administering authority shall be entitled to constitute the territory into a custom, fiscal or administrative union or federation with adjacent territories under his sovereignty or control. So the Retailer say the United Kingdom, they will get the rights and the entitlement, the right and for they be entitled for join this territory administratively or a federation with any adjacent territories under their own sovereign control. See the word sovereignty, they even write them, they even spell them out. Sovereignty or control. So the Retailer say the British, they will get the authority by this agreement for take the southern Cameroons, attach them to Nigeria. That was within their rights, as spelled out in this agreement. It talk of a day. Say the administering authority shall be entitled to constitute the territory into a custom, fiscal or administrative union or federation. Administrative union. It could only be just administrative. They don't fit join the southern Cameroons to Nigeria permanently. No. They don't fit join them permanently. They don't get the rights. This trusteeship agreement, it don't get anything to do with Nigeria. And now why that way, before the northern Cameroons want join Nigeria, they be first get for terminate the trusteeship agreement. Before the southern Cameroons want join La République du Cameroun, they be first get to terminate the trusteeship agreement. Because as far as this agreement stands, the former British Southern Cameroons, the former Northern Cameroons were never an integral part of Nigeria. What they were administratively attached to Nigeria. They be attached them to Nigeria for the purpose of administration, for make them easier for the administering authority for administer the territory. That's all. But the Cameroons under British administration was an entity on its own with its own agreement with the United Nations, how the British administer that territory. But within the agreement, it tells the British say they get the entitlement for attach the territory an administrative union or federation with adjacent territories. Their next door neighbors them. And now why that way our forefathers they will go for the House of Enugu, because the British they will get the rights, the latitude. Because Nigeria it been a country where the United Kingdom will get sovereign power over or control over. So now they continue for talk say, to this end, the administering authority may use volunteer forces, facilities and assistance from the territory in carrying out the obligations towards the Security Council undertaking in this regard by the administering authority, as well as for local defense and the maintenance of law and order within the territory. What did that one mean? They say the British, they feel use volunteer. Wait, my circle and phone. So the Retailer say the administering authority, if he use volunteer forces or facilities and assistance from the territory itself for carry out their obligations towards the Security Council undertaking in regards to administering authority, as well as for local defense and the maintenance of law and order within the territory. So when were the British, they will create the mobile wing police. It was because the trusteeship agreement, it allowed them for create volunteer forces for the purpose of maintaining law and order within the territory. It no means say the Southern Cameroons being a country, they get police. No. Even that so-called police, mobile wing police or whatever, now the trusteeship agreement, it gives the British them authorization for fit create them. If he use the local population. Now this is the tell now, local defense and the administration or maintenance of law and order. Everything be spelled out in black and white. Now the administering authority, it get the powers for do this. Nobody not just say the local population be decide one day say this, so we need for enforce our laws then, so we could bring police. No. This was all planned. This was all under the powers of the British, because the British, they get sovereignty. And even if they get some people, the way they be volunteer in the army or whatever, it be in a British army, no be Southern Cameroon's army. Now British army. British, now they be own the sovereignty of that territory as per the terms and agreement of this trusteeship agreement. So my country people them, we don't show una the actual trusteeship agreement where they sign them for 1946 December. But for make una understand the full picture, I go take una back to 1913, 1914, 1918, 1920 before we come to 1946. For make una understand the historical context. Who start the document come out, why we need the trusteeship agreement in the first place.
In 1946, the last assembly of the League of Nations convened in Geneva to hand over its assets and responsibilities to the newborn United Nations.
I now declare the last meeting of the 21st and last assembly of the League of Nations closed.
The meeting is called to order.
Those who said more armaments would make their nations safe only led their nations to disasters never dreamed of in human history before. Aggressive wars in Manchuria, in the Chaco, in Abyssinia, in Spain, the League's collapse, Munich, the Second War. The Second War, with 17 million soldiers killed in battle, 6 million Jews gassed to death, 6 million Poles massacred by firing squads, more than 50 million human beings who lost their lives. The burning of Hamburg, of Dresden, of Tokyo, scores of thousands of little children who ran around like human torches in those hellish conflagrations till they died.
So, as we understand, that territory it be been a part of the bigger German Cameroon. For 1913, the British, they be signed an agreement, an international treaty with the Germans for demarcate the border between German Cameroon and Nigeria. That agreement for 1913, it be between the Germans and the British for demarcate the border right from Yola for Adamawa all the way down to the Atlantic in the sea. That international agreement, it be very important because now that agreement way Cameroon government it be use them for the International Court of Justice for win the case against Nigeria for Bakassi Peninsula. That one na 1913. The next year for 1914, what will happen as a World War I is start. Germany it been at the belligerent factor, and then the whole world it fight against Germany. World War I it lasts till 1918 when they defeat Germany. For that fight, the British and the French, they've been allies, and the Americans and other countries, they've been allies, they defeat Germany. So what they do now, they seize all the territories the way Germany will control them around the world. Now that reason why German Cameroon it be fall in the hands of the allies, the British and the French. What the British they do now, they take a small part of German Cameroon to the west of German Cameroon, because their intention all along it be just been for extend their influence inside Central Africa. They take that small territory now for west of German Cameroon with the intention for attach them to Nigeria for form a bigger Nigeria. That was the British their intention. Meanwhile, with the majority of German Cameroon, it fall now to the French, and the French they take them now, it become French Cameroon, which we know today as the former French Cameroon. So as the World War it end for 1918, by January 1920, all the powerful countries around the world, they become together for form which way they call them, say, the League of Nations. Their number one primary objective it be being for protect world peace, for make sure say they not get another world war like the one where they just come on forget them, where it devastate the world and it kill millions of people. So now why that way the League of Nations it be formed for 1920. And after they formed the League of Nations, those territories then where the allies they be seized them from Germany, they be fall under what they be call them say the League of Nations mandates. That one now the very first time that way, this territory where we know today as the former British Southern Cameroons, for the very first time it get an international reputation, and that international it become an international entity for the very first time now for the League of Nations mandate after the League of Nations be created for 1920. Before that, before the League of Nations, before World War I, it be been a part of the Greater German Cameroon. So from 1920s, after the League of Nations be created, that territory it become part of the League of Nations mandate. Remember, say nothing, it never ever exist on the international scene as the Southern Cameroons. Never, ever, ever. I will explain the reasons why I talk so. So as I be talk, the League of Nations mandate it been now for the territory where it been now both combining the northern Cameroons, the northern British Cameroons and the southern British Cameroons. Both of those two pieces of territories them combined, now ye be formed the territory where it be under the League of Nations mandate. Now, by 1945-46, the League of Nations it fall apart and it give birth to the United Nations. So now why that way the United Nations Trusteeship Agreement it become about? Now why that way the United Nations Trusteeship Council and the trusteeship system it become about? And all those territories the way they been a League of Nations mandates, they become now the United Nations Trust territories them. Once again, Southern Cameroons is still no exist. It been a part of the territories where they know them as the Cameroons under British administration, where it include the former British Northern Cameroons. So the Southern Cameroons as an entity on its own never ever exist with an international recognition or international significance. It been just a part of German Cameroon or a part of the British Cameroons, or which way they know them as the Cameroons under British administration. Just a part of it. The actual Southern Cameroons never ever exist as an entity on its own. Never. And una need for also understand say the Trusteeship Council it will be disbanded for 1994 after all the 11 trust territories they will get independence or self-government. So the work of decolonizing the world it be achieved and it be completed. The Trusteeship Council it be disbanded because the work of decolonization by the United Nations has been completed. After the office of the Trusteeship Council was disbanded, now that time now for 1995, the next year, now that time when Anglophones they come up for Cameroon, they go for New York, say they go reopen the decolonization of the former British Southern Cameroons. When they reach for New York, they tell them the truth, say it be impossible. Those people them, including Jongo Foncha, the liars the way they be, they buy United Nations flag for gift shop, come back for Cameroon, they hold them for air, cross the Mongo, can they fool Anglophones them. Say the United Nations they come for can decolonize or for can complete the decolonization or whatever nonsense where they talk about for 1995. The reality now say for 1994, the office or the Trusteeship Council it be don't be disbanded. all the trust territories them, they did not attain independence or self-government, which was the mandate where they be given for the administering authorities of the trust territories them by the United Nations General Assembly when where they be create the Trusteeship Council. So today, the Trusteeship Council, it only get now the archives for the work where they be doing. The office itself, it don't still hold meetings, it don't still get assemblies because there is no point, there is no need. They don't get any territory in the world where it be colonized, according to the United Nations itself. So now why that way? Whenever when I hear these people, the way they call themselves barristers, they work at they misconstrue and misrepresent and they lie about the history of the former British Southern Cameroons, they always try their hardest for ignore the existence of the former British Northern Cameroons. Because whenever you ask them about the former British Northern Cameroons, their argument it fall apart. The United Nations it be get an agreement with the British for administer the Cameroons under British administration. The former Southern Cameroons are just a part of that territory. So one agreement, no be been two agreements. The idea of the so-called Southern Cameroons, now the British, they decide because they get the latitude administratively for divide the territory for the purpose of administration only. The legal document where it create an entity where the norm on the international scene, now the actual trusteeship agreement between the British and the United Nations. And this document what they show now, the trusteeship agreement itself, now the legal document where it create the Cameroons under British administration, where the former Southern Cameroons are just a part of that territory. Now the only legal status this way, that territory don't ever get them on the international scene. Make una understand that. Now, ask yourself this question. How was this trusteeship agreement terminated? Because today we know say that territory it no still being a United Nations trust territory. So how did it transform from a UN trust territory to whatever it did today? How did they terminate this agreement? That is very important. And another thing that way, these charlatans and people the way they like for misrepresent and lie about the history, they no ever want to talk about. Many of them actually be ignorant about that reality. The way where this trusteeship agreement it be terminated, it be simple. It is by exchange of notes between the British government and the Cameroon government. Person will be represent Cameroon government, now President Amadou Ahidjo, is signed on the exchange of notes. The person will be represent the British government, now the British ambassador to Yaoundé, Cecil King, he also signed on that document. And after that agreement, after that exchange of notes, when an international treaty, they be both of the parties them, the Cameroon government and the British government, they be table the agreement for the United Nations Secretariat for formally notify the United Nations say the trusteeship agreement it don't be terminated. And nobody on the international scene it be dispute that fact. And which way we need for understand now say by terminating the trusteeship agreement, the British government transfers sovereignty of that territory to Cameroon. And now why that way Cameroon if you get all the legal rights for take Nigeria, go for International Court of Justice for adjudicate the case of the boundary between Cameroon and Nigeria vis-a-vis the Bakassi Peninsula. And by extension, the whole of the Anglophone zone it be recognized internationally, legally, in every way, shape possible. It be recognized as part of one sovereign Republic of Cameroon. So that territory, it never ever get an international position or international recognition or an international, it never ever be an international entity on its own. Under the trusteeship agreement, it be been just part of the Cameroons under British administration. On the day where they terminate the trusteeship agreement, 1st of October 1961, that territory becomes an integral part of the Republic of Cameroon. It becomes one of the federated states. It becomes West Cameroon. So that territory never ever exercised its own sovereignty for 1 second. That territory, known as the former British Southern Cameroons, never ever be an international entity on its own. Never. These are just historical facts. I'm not at the show that the documents, the historical documents them for prove the point where I talk am. I need to just talk about my opinions or how I feel about it. No, these are historical facts. Any person will get any other documents then where he want for present them for challenge these facts and these realities them. I'll be very willing for get the debate with you anywhere, anytime. So before I continue for read for una the rest of the trusteeship agreement, I want to make una understand these realities. And now why that way the people the way they want for fool una, where they want for lie for una about una history, they no go ever bring for una these documents the way me had to show una. I understand say for many of una, now the first time this way una they see these documents them. There is no such thing as the former Southern Cameroons without the trusteeship agreement. It don't exist. Now the one legal document this where it create where to where we call them today say Southern Cameroons or whatever. Even though Southern Cameroons don't ever exist because Southern Cameroons are just a part of the Cameroons under British administration. So Southern Cameroons as an entity on its own, it be very important for now for understand this and for recognize this. Never ever be an entity on its own. So we move on to Article 6. The administering authority it shall promote the development of free political institutions suited to the territory. So if we even get political party like the KNDP and the rest, now because this trusteeship agreement it authorize and empower the administering authority when are the British for promote the development of free political institutions suited to the territory. So KNDP, Jongo Fonchai Party, NDLE Party, all the other political parties, they will be formed because the British allowed them to form it. Because the British, they will hold the sovereignty. Understand that. No, not because they will just decide upon themselves. No, the British had an army, an air force, and a navy where they will feel crush una. If una decide for rebel, do something where they don't like them, they crush you. Because you will be colonized. You don't get sovereignty. You don't get the powers for dictate anything. The British, they get the powers to do whatever they want to do for that territory. So they continue for talk say, to this end, the administering authority shall ensure to the inhabitants of the territory a progressively increasing share in the administrative and other services of the territory that shall develop the participation of the inhabitants of the territory in advisory and legislative bodies and in the government of the territory, both central and local, as may be appropriate to the particular circumstances of the territory and its people. What did that one mean as a The whole point of the trusteeship system is be being for prepare these territories them for self-governance or independence. Remember, I talk say or, I not talk say and. And now one of the things in that way, where Anglophone people, they usually use them for misquote and then for bamboozle and for lie for what people then say, the United Nations began responsibility for prepare we for self-governance and independence. Wrong. The United Nations documents, they be clear. They say they need for the administering authority, it will prepare these territories them for self-governance or independence. In cases the way they not give una independence, they will give una self-governance. And they talk about this agreement, say the administering authority is supposed to increasing or give una increasing share in the administrative and the services of the territory. What means they get for prepare una like picking them. Because the United Nations at that time, it be see these territories them like picking them, where they not fit govern themselves. Now why that way they be seize their sovereignty away from them? So they go prepare una. For example, Pekin, time with the bunny, you took Bobby for a mop. You dictate everything for ye. Now you decide when you go chop. Now you go decide everything for ye. As the Pekin they grow up, after 1 year, 2 years, the Pekin go start decide where to wait one chop. If you give it something you don't like, I mean go deny it. Better I should not hungry. It don't know what will be good for you, but it don't start the reasons more. It don't start to take responsibilities them for certain things and for your life. If you want to tell you say make it can wash, it could deny say no one wash. But why sometimes you want walk off a road, it see poto, it see water, it jump enter here for inside. As they begin to grow, it want reach 7 or 8, it start go school. You start to give you some responsibilities them. You start to tell you say on Saturdays now you get for wash pan. You start to tell you say go call mommy. Send it say make it go deliver message for next door neighbor. It tell you say make it go for neighbor, go borrow salt. Yes, I know how our people they like for borrow salt, borrow maggi, borrow all thing. Send it say make it go borrow jangara for next door neighbor, borrow maggi, borrow salt. When that picking don't reach 7 or 8. By the time when that picking don't reach 18 or 19, you don't give him more and more responsibilities. Them now you tell that picking now say make go farm, go harvest pineapple, harvest for farm, corn and beans, bring them. Ye one, it don't need you for take them. Go for farm with ye. No, it go for farm, yourself, go harvest. At that age, you don't need for cook for ye. Now ye says go to cook for house self. That picking go she don't now thinks it is so today na Saturday. Wait till we go chop. It wrong go for farm, go harvest. It don't need your permission. Before you want come back from Jangi, it don't already cook. So now the whole system that where the British it be get the authority as the administering authority, as time they go on, as they see I'm saying the territory it progress administratively. They start to give the territory the now small powers them for administer their own affairs. And that's how you prepare the territory for eventually give you self-governance or independence. So when that time be reached, the British they create the mobile wing. Now in preparing the territory for self-governance or independence. As time they go on, you start to train the people that now in administration. Now, why that way they get the political parties? Now, why that way now they start to be involved in political decision making, in other services of the territory, and developing their participation, as they talk of here, developing their participation of the inhabitants of the territory in advisory and legislative bodies, and in the government of the territory, both central and local, as may be appropriate to that particular circumstances of the territory and its people. So everything will be done now because this agreement it be authorized the British for doing. So if now want to read Article 7, I go publish the information for any person who want to read the whole thing. I go publish this document for now. Okay, make we go for Article 8. Article 8 it talks say the administering authority in framing the laws relating to holding or transfer of land and natural resources, the administering authorities shall take into consideration native laws and customs. They talk say the administering authority shall take into consideration the native laws and customs. It don't mean say when a native laws and customs they go work. No, they just talk say take them into consideration. It don't mean say just use their native laws and customs. No. So there are times when the administering authority, by your power, it go cancel the local laws and native laws and customs. Force your own laws. Other times, it go talk say, okay, the local laws and customs or the native laws and customs, they be enough. So make we not continue for the use of our native laws and customs. But they be get the powers for do and undo. They just advise them for this agreement. They just tell them, say, take into consideration the local or the native laws and customs. That's all. So make we fast forward to Article 10, where it talks, say, the administering authority, in accordance with Article 76 of the United Nations Charter, they be charged for promote political, economic, social, educational advancement of the inhabitants of the territory to carry out other basic objectives of the international trusteeship system and the maintenance of peace, order, and good government. Make we talk about Togoland. When I remember at the beginning of this presentation, I'll be showing some of the trusteeship agreements them. When I look for here, this one are just 8 of the trusteeship agreements. Then we look at number 1 and number 5. Togoland under the British administration and Togoland under French administration. Togoland under French administration na modern day Togo, where we know very well, say na francophone country, it talk na French for Togo. Whereas Togoland under British administration, it dey inside modern day Ghana. When I go ask me, say, but countryman, how that one happened?
On the 1st of September 2020, a group calling itself the Western Togoland Restoration Front announced the creation of an independent state of Western Togoland in southeast Ghana. In the weeks that followed, a number of violent incidents occurred across the region, suggesting that a serious secessionist uprising may now be emerging. Another extremely interesting case is British Togoland, which was incorporated into Ghana in 1957. One of the most interesting and yet little known and largely ignored cases concerns Togoland, a German colony that was divided between Britain and France during the First World War. While the French part went on to become an independent country, Togo, British Togoland was instead integrated into Ghana, despite opposition from the largest single community in the territory, who wanted union with neighbouring Togo.
Fantastic. So what will be happen, I say, for 1956, before Ghana get independence for 1957, they be ask the population, the people then for the Machon again for here. The people then for Togoland under British administration, they give them a plebiscite as well for decide whether they want to join Togo or join Ghana. Ghana, it will be set for become independent for 1957 already. Whereas the other territory where it there for here, Togoland under French administration, it no don't be ready for gain independence. France, it will still get like 2 or 3 more years for prepare that territory for getting independence by around 1960. So they ask the people then for the British Togoland, say, una want for join Ghana, at that time they be called Ghana, say Gold Coast. Una want for join Ghana and become independent as one sovereign nation, or una want for wait and join Togoland for become one country when Togo become independent. The people then for British Togoland, they vote for that plebiscite for join Gold Coast when a modern day Ghana. So for 1957, when the British Parliament for London, it be signed the independence of Ghana, Togoland, when a British Togoland, it become the Volta region of Ghana. So now why that way today, former Togoland under British administration, now an integral part of Ghana. And then you get the French Togo, where it become an independent country called Togo. I tell una this one because many of una don't be misled, una don't be fed a lot of fake news and information. Someone they talk say, how can you get independence by joining another country? Yes. They always talk like say Southern Cameroons and Northern Cameroons or the Cameroons under British administration, it be been the only territory where don't get the same situation. Wrong. Now because our people they need to read the reality now say Togoland under British administration, they get exactly the same deal. And they vote for their own plebiscite for join Ghana, and they get their independence by joining Ghana, or they get their independence with Ghana. As Ghana they gain their independence for March 1957, Togoland, if we don't already join them, as their plebiscite it be dictate, they terminate their trusteeship agreement, and then they join Ghana, and then they become an integral part of Ghana. Make una understand that one. Now, the facts say all we agree. All we agree. Say the former British Southern Cameroons, it be been an entity where it be been a trust territory. Now, the trust territory, it will be as a result of the trusteeship agreement between the United Nations and the United Kingdom. The question now is, how was the trusteeship agreement terminated? That is the question. It was terminated by the international agreement entered into by the British government and the Cameroonian government. On one hand, President Amadou Ahidjo signed for Cameroon, and Cecil King, where he been at the British ambassador for Yaoundé, representing the British government, it be signed on behalf of the British government. That action, the exchange of notes between Yaoundé and London, the Cameroon president and the British ambassador for Yaoundé, now an international agreement where it terminate the trusteeship agreement And then now that territory, it goes from being a trust territory to being an integral part of one and indivisible Cameroon on the 1st of October 1961. At the same time, the former British Northern Cameroons, it becomes an integral part of Nigeria on the 1st of June 1961. And now exactly the same way the British they take and for terminate the trusteeship agreement with respect to the former Northern Cameroons, the exchange of notes between the British government and the Nigerian government. It terminate the agreement and hand over the sovereignty of the former Northern Cameroons to Nigeria. And then the British they hand over the sovereignty of the former British Southern Cameroons to Yaoundé, to President Amadou Ahidjo. These are historical facts. You cannot argue with them because documents are there in black and white. The agreements were written and signed by authorities. The authority that signed the trusteeship agreement is the United Nations General Assembly on one hand and the British government on the other. The authorities that terminated the trusteeship agreement are two sovereign states, the British government on one hand and the Republic of Cameroon on the other hand, sovereign states and seated members of the United Nations.